Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. So, if you watched the last video, which was the first one with the new mic, you may have noticed that there was in the background some kind of sound that maybe sounded vaguely like water running or an air conditioner having an aneurysm or something. I have no idea what that was, but just to be safe, I've turned off the AC, turned off the fan, turned off the lights, and I am posting this from the sweltering 90-degree heat of my completely black apartment. Picture the pit from Batman, the third one, except instead of, having perilous journeys of self-discovery, someone's posting videos about Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's jump into deck edit and see what we're dealing with today. So this is a deck called Cyber Angels. I thought I'd take a break from the memes and examine something actually good this time. This is a deck that I expect to become a force to be reckoned with in the new format. It's already putting up some results, and I think it'll just put up more as the format continues. It attempts to utilize the synergy between Pre-Preparation of Rites, Hymn of Light, Cyber Angel Ben 10, and Herald of Perfection, along with a whole shitload of fairies in order to make a board state that can play through any of your opponent's cards. I'll walk you through the card choices real fast. We have an Archlord Christia. This is basically Vanity's Fiend, except you can search it. We have the Star Seraphs, also searchable as a result of Ben 10. Routinely, you get to fire her effect off twice per turn, which gets you the stick and the chair, which is all you need. We have one Manju of the 10,000 Hands, or three Manju of the 10,000 Hands, rather. Manju the 30,000 Hands. He's good. Two Honest. I've never found a better home for Honest. This card is nuts. The deck really struggles with the ability to get over big things, but this really evens out a lot of those problems. More importantly, you can also pitch it to Herald, and he's searchable. Three Saphir, Queen of Dragons. Probably the worst card in the deck because it's a dragon, not a fairy, but her ritual spell is basically Return of the Dragon Lords, prevents destruction by removal. You can, if a light monster made it from the hand or the deck to the graveyard during the turn, at the end of the turn, you can draw two cards and discard a card, or add a light monster from your graveyard back to your hand. Very useful for Honests over and over again, or Ben 10s over and over again, or discard a random card out of your opponent's hand, which is pretty cool going first, because you usually get to be like Saphir turn 1, Evil Swarm, Ouroboros turn 1, take two cards out of your opponent's hand. We got three Herald of Perfection. This card's nuts. Every card in this deck is a fairy. Routinely, you'll get to negate four things with it. Oh god, I really can't sing this thing's praises enough. Three Cyber Angel Ben 10, really good with Dawn of the Herald, because it returns it to your hand and gets you a light fairy from your deck to your hand, which means you can get like a Manju and then get the second half of Saphira and then use your effect again. It's great. One Raigeki, because it's good. Three pre-prep. Boy, plus oneing feels good. One thing I'll say is I never felt like I wanted to pre-prep for a Ben 10 and a Machine Angel ritual, which is good because the deck isn't playing it. One Upstart Goblin, two Terraforming, one normal prep of Rites, three Dawn of the Herald, three Hymn of Light, two MST, and three Ritual Sanctuary. In the extra deck, we have a bunch of good rank 4s. Then we have Delteros and Ouroboros. Those are our three materials that we go into. We overlay Constellar Diamond onto Delteros, and then, of course, we have Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Blagon. So let's jump into the games and see what happens. So, because the deck we're playing is actually good, and I expect it to be good in a format instead of just playable, I made a conscious effort in order to find decks that are also good to pit it against. We have run into 50-card Lightsworn, which is a strategy that recently became popular again after a 50-card Lightsworn build made top 8 at a recent regional. I think it was in Spokane. It might have been in somewhere else, but it's on Yu-Gi-Oh! Top Decks. Check it out. I'm scared of Fairy Tale Snow. So we've opened pretty well, actually. We get to Terraforming for Ritual Sanctuary and then fire it off in order to get Ben 10. What's important to understand is you don't need to have used Hymn of Light for its ritual effect in order to get the effect where you can prevent things from being destroyed. So if we pitch it to Ritual Sanctuary, it's still good. We're going to Dawn of the Herald for Cyber Angel Ben 10 getting out Herald of Perfection. Ben 10 is going to get us the stick, and since we haven't normal summoned, we can now get the chair. I don't feel super great going into things like Evil Swarm Ouroboros just out of nowhere, because routinely certain decks want cards to be sent from their hand to the graveyard, but I see the instant fusion and I'm like, okay, well, we certainly dodged a bullet there. Our opponent opens not a whole lot of good things, so they're just going to set Fairy Tale Snow and end their turn. We now have two guys in our hand, so it looks like we can negate a lot, but more importantly, we can send this ritual spell off of Sanctuary to get Hymn of Light, which we can use to summon Saphira, and then we can use Benten to get Manju. I'm not concerned about Manju's effect, I just want to push for lethal, and once he realizes this is lethal, our opponent scoops. So this is the actually good game we play. I've opened not particularly well. You can see we have 2 copies of Herald of Perfection. One of those will be added back with Dawn of the Herald when I send it. Not really good because I would much prefer to have like a Ben 10 or something. This means that I'll at least have 2 negation effects, but hopefully that's enough. He's opened Anti-Spell, which is pretty good against us considering half of our deck is spells, and the other half is a bunch of cards that can only be summoned when we play a spell card. So we're going to use Dawn of the Herald to get out Herald of Perfection. Just sit on it, hope that that's enough. He sets anti-spells and uses Union Hanger. I'm like, okay, that's target number 1. Then he makes Galaxy Soldier, and I'm like, that's target number 2. Okay, we've gotten some sweet 2-for-1s, and now we're going to have to wait. We draw pre-prep, and I'm like, oh, great, we win. But then he flips anti-spell, which means we're going to pre-prep and then only be able to ritual summon the next turn. And then we draw Saphira. So I'm like, okay, looks like I'm going to have 3 Saphiras in my hand, which unfortunately can't negate anything because they're dragons and not fairies, as you'll see when he fires off an instant fusion. He gets Crush Wyvern, makes Castell. I'm like, alright, whatever. Okay. So Castell really bungles my butthole. However, we get to make Saphira here. He maxes. I'm like, you can draw 1 card, man. I don't care. We're going to kill this Castell, use Saphira's effect to draw 2, discard 1. I could have used any of the other effects, but I was like, God, we got to get something going. I get Christia and MST, and I'm like, that's pretty good, actually. MST beats another Union Hanger, and Christia would be really good if I could get her. Right now I have 2 engrave and 1 on board. This is not a fairy, remember? So he's going to get the card off of Assault Core, which is fine. We're going to set MST in Terraforming. I want Ritual Sanctuary bad. So he's going to fire off this Terraforming of his own and set Union Hanger. I'm fine with that. I keep this Upstart in my hand to use with Ritual Sanctuary instead of setting it because I have to figure out a way to win. If I get like a stick maybe off of Ritual Sanctuary, I figure maybe there's some weird scenario in which I can get Christia out. Unfortunately, he has a second Terraforming, and I don't have removal for this Union Hanger, so I gotta win now. I figure I can if I get this Ritual Sanctuary off, but he MSTs it, and I'm like, well, you know, okay, whatever. That's fine. And we don't have 4 engrave, unfortunately, which means that we're kind of butt-bungled. He's going to flip Union Hanger, get Buster Drake, and I'm like, oh, God, here comes the big ABC man. And here he is. He's going to banish the set card and then set Soul Charge. And I'm like, what? He forgot that I can use Hymn of Light to remove, to keep Saphira alive. So now all I have to do is engineer a way to get Buster out. And because a light monster was sent from the hand to the graveyard, because these guys are light, I get to use her effect during the end phase. So I'm going to draw 2 and discard 1. I discard Sovereignty, which is the 4th light monster. I'm like, okay, here's Christia. Christia's going to get back Stick. Stick has Honest attached, so we're going to fire off with an Honest, kill the ABC Buster Drake, and then kill him with Saphira. Important to understand, he could have banished any of my guys if he just didn't set the Soul Charge. But man, what a good game. A lot of back and forth. We're up against Blue Eyes for Game 3, running and drawing 2 trade-in. You know, I just love that Blue Eyes just gets to draw trade-in like nobody's business. Regardless, we, you know, may or may not have a problem here. We do have prep rights, which means we get to make a Herald, but once again, not a whole lot of stuff that we can do besides that. However, we have 4 fairies in our hand that we can use to negate. So I'm thinking he's going to have 6 cards in his hand. If I can get him to be sending stuff like trade-ins and Galaxy Soldiers, then I can negate those, get a +1, and end up at a point where the only card left basically is Herald of Perfection. Additionally, because I have 4, I'm always thinking about Christia. You always got to be thinking about Christia in this deck, and this is enough for Christia. So he's going to start, he's going to trade in. I'm like, okay, that's number 1. We'll negate that. Then he's going to Dragon Shrine. I'm like, yeah, I probably have to negate Dragon Shrine too. You got it. Then he's going to Galaxy Soldier. I'm like, sure, Galaxy Soldier, you got it. Then he sets trade in. Don't set trade in. You don't get anything off of setting it. He fires off Archbrave Dragon. I'm like, no, absolutely not. I have an Upstart, and what do you know? It's Christia. So now suddenly we're really in this game. We're going to attack with all of our good friends, and we have a chair in our hand. I don't want to normal summon it, but it is lethal next turn. He has Melody of Awakening Dragon. Fun fact, he could discard trade-in for Melody of Awakening Dragon, but he said it. It doesn't matter anyway. I could have negated it with Herald of Perfection, and during my turn, he is just going to concede. So we're back with the deck. Obviously, I'm going to say I thought it performed really well. We went up against decks that were legitimate tier 1 meta threats. That ABC deck is going to be absolutely everywhere in a couple of weeks. That Blue Eyes deck is already everywhere, and, you know, say what you want about Lightsworn. They did put up results, which is more than I can say for a lot of other archetypes that people thought were going to be good. As far as the deck goes, I really like this build. I truthfully don't know if I would make any changes. I maybe would cut a Scepter just because it leads to some cloggy hands and it's so easily searchable off of Ben 10 anyway. But aside from that, everything else felt great. Saphira obviously does not feel as good as the rest of the deck, but you need her. 1, she's 6 stars, so you can send her to Herald of Perfection. 2, Hymn of Light is so busted. Having Return of the Dragon Lords in your deck is really good, especially when your boss monster does not beat over Blue Eyes White Dragon. I never ever felt that I wanted a Machine Angel ritual so I could get Ben 10 off of pre-prep. I really do just think it's fine playing her as is, because there's so many other ways you can get Herald of Perfection out, discarding multiples or discarding Saphira, and then you get it back anyway. I liked MSTs over Twin Twisters. The deck really has a lot of cards they want to keep in their hand. You know, you want to keep extra fairies in your hand so you can negate as many things as possible. You want to keep Honest in your hand so that you can beat over big threat men. Probably don't want to be playing Twin Twisters because if you were going to destroy 2 things, you would just negate one of them anyway. Ritual Sanctuary is great, but unfortunately most of the spells I have in this deck I just want to cast anyway. Still, probably worth playing. I wish there was a better 3-material rank 4 monster. Ouroboros only feels okay on the play, and Constellar Diamond isn't even possible on the play. Aside from that, I really like it. I think this deck has a lot of legs, is very powerful, and you'll see it a whole lot in the coming months ahead. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed watching Manju's price spike ever higher. I hope you enjoyed watching the closest thing to a mono blue control deck we'll ever see in Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, the creatures are actually blue, and it almost has counterspells. And finally, I hope you just enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give me a like, a comment, or subscribe. It really helps me out. And if you want to catch me playing the decks I build on this show on stream, I am on Twitch this Tuesday and Thursday from 9:30 a.m. to noon for another iteration of Early Morning Yu-Gi-Oh! Finally, if there is a certain deck or archetype you want to see played on the show, let me know in the comments below and I will do my best to accommodate you. Otherwise, I will see you on Wednesday.